Welcome to the Dog Training Audio Experience Podcast. This is the podcast where you are going to get a lot of value when it comes to learning more about dog training, dog behavior, and beyond. I'm your host, Erika Gonzalez. I'm a certified dog trainer and behavior consultant and the founder of From Dusk Till Dog. Real quick, before we jump into the podcast today, if you like this podcast or my online content and would like to support my content, please check out our Patreon support page at patreon.com/From Dusk Till Dog. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the podcast. Today's episode is going to revolve around service dogs. We are going to cover what a service dog actually is, what they do, some of the logistics behind what is required for a service dog, and more. Here to help me discuss this topic is my guest, Sunny Bravo. She is a Karen Pryor Academy certified dog trainer and the owner of Happy Canine Training, located in Scottsdale, Arizona. Welcome to the show, Sunny. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk about this. I feel like service dogs is a muddy area for most people. I don't know. I mean, even I was still learning about it and, figuring out what the differences are. So I'm glad that we'll be able to let people know some more about this important topic.
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely my thing I'm most passionate about in life. For sure.
Well, that is why I wanted to have you on as our expert here about this. So thank you again. And I'm going to jump right into it with a basic and easy question, but one that I think is warranted when starting this episode. So can you explain generally for us what a service dog actually is, what exactly a service dog does or is, and some examples of what they assist with and what they provide?
Absolutely. So the ADA the ADA stands for Americans with Disabilities Act. And so The ADA defines a service dog as a dog who has been trained to perform tasks to mitigate their handler's disability. So it's not just that the dog has been trained to perform tasks, it goes along with their handler having a life-altering disability. So the two combined is what makes a service dog team. Some of the different types of service dogs that there are, probably the most common that people see or refer to are the seeing eyes or guide dogs for the blind. There's also hearing assistance dogs for people that have zero hearing or hearing loss or partial hearing loss. Another pretty popular one, or common one, I should say, are diabetic alert dogs. So for people that have low blood sugar. And something that is more popular now in a good way especially for our veterans that have served our country, are PTSD dogs, so psychiatric service dogs. And that can also be for the common person. It doesn't have to be just people that have served in the military, but people that have gone through traumatic experiences. And then there's also mobility assistance dogs, autism service dogs. There's a huge range of service dogs. Yeah.
I'm sure that's not all of them. And even that is a lot, there's so many different things. God, I love dogs, just more reasons to love dogs, right?
Yes,
that's a lot. And if, I know that sometimes, again, out there, it can get a little muddy in terms of what is legally required or not legally required or recommended. So could you touch a little bit, and maybe using one of those specific examples, I don't know how much it differs across the board or if it's just a general, maybe you could touch on that if it depends on the type of service they're providing or not, but are there legal, quote unquote, legal requirements or paperwork or specific documents needed for your dog to be considered an official service dog?
So according to the ADA, so I always refer to the federal government.
The good idea.
Right? Always go to the law.
Yeah, that's good.
The ADA really only requires that the dog is trained in tasks to provide assistance for their disabled handler. They are required to be housebroken. And the only other requirement is that they are required to be under control by the handler in public. There is no behavior definitions in the law that states that a dog must be in a heel position on your right side or your left side.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in there aside from the dog being under control. So that can kind of branch out to if your dog is excessively barking. They might need to be pulled from public access until we can kind of resolve that issue. And it might just be, a couple days of training. And for some dogs, it might be a couple months or even up to a year of training to resolve those issues. A lot of times people have a fear of going out because they may not feel their dog is trained enough or have enough tasks under their belt. And as long as your dog is able to provide at least one task to mitigate your disability, the dog doesn't need 50 tasks or be able to do all of these tricks or anything. It's a specific need for a specific individual. And so every service dog is different. Every human that has a service dog is going to have different needs.
True.
And along with that, the ADA, again, referring to the law, they do not recognize any type of registration, paperwork, ID, or certifications. So a lot of people that are new to the service dog world will go online and think, and I was one of these people when I started out 22 years ago, you go online and you think, oh gosh, I need to register my service dog and get them a certificate, an ID, and those are scams. You're just wasting your money. They're not required. If you have a disability and you have a dog that can assist you with that disability out in public or at home, you're qualified as long as the dog is housebroken and able to remain under control.
I see. Okay. So I'm glad that you touched on that because I don't personally work or specialize in service dogs, which is why I have you on here to explain these intricacies. But, I've helped people that either their other dog's a service dog or I've worked with other trainers under them in the past, that do specialize more in that. And I do feel like a lot of the clients that were being worked with or that I was speaking to about it, they do feel like, oh, my dog's just not quite there. And I appreciate the perfectionist because that's me. So I understand where it's coming from, but I'm glad that you said, hey, we need one important task that's going to help you with this.
Yeah.
And your dog's not, for lack of a better word, acting like a maniac out in public. And then you're good to go, and not peeing all over the floor. Done. The other things I think are a nice bonus and something that, is a good idea to train other things, no matter what dog you have or for what purpose it is. But especially with the service dogs, I'm glad that you touched on, the simplicity in that regard of it. I know doing tasks is not necessarily simple for dogs, but or training them on it is not simple, but generally they just need those couple of things. So that's important. So do they need to wear a vest? Is it required that they have any ID on them to say, hey, I'm a service dog, don't touch me? Or, hey, I'm performing tasks right now. Anything that's required there? Can you walk in with, can they walk in kind of naked, so to speak, with just their harness or just their collar on?
Right. So ADA, going to refer to that one more time. They do not require the dog to be labeled in any way, shape, or form. And so I live in Arizona. It gets very hot here in the summers. Sometimes it's entirely too hot to have anything on the dog aside from maybe dog boots because the asphalt is burning. And my dog goes labeled sometimes, and other times she's just wearing a collar and a leash and her dog boots because it's so incredibly warm. So some people feel more comfortable always having something, either a leash wrap, a collar, or a vest on their dog to kind of inform the public that, yes, this is a working service dog, but it's not legally required, no.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Do you find that there's a benefit, in your opinion, as a professional trainer, to having something for people going out to say, hey, this is a service animal?
In all honesty, I feel like for newer teens or people that are new to the service dog world, or maybe moving from a mobility assistance device to a service dog, I feel for them, it does make them feel a little bit more comfortable having their dog labeled.
Right.
I know that there's a lot of anxiety that comes with having a furry partner with you. It brings a lot of sometimes unwanted attention.
Yes.
And it really kind of depends where you're at. If your dog is not labeled, sometimes people will pay more attention, and sometimes people will pay less attention. It really just depends. But I have found in my experience that For newer people to the service dog world, having their dog labeled in some way, shape, or form makes them sometimes feel a little bit more comfortable.
I can understand that. I feel like if it were me, I've even had things on Jade, my pit bull, that just says, I'm busy or I'm working, don't talk to me, kind of bandana on. It's not a service thing by any means, but just saying like we're in training, because I have people move completely out of the way because she's a pit bull, which is oddly a benefit because I don't really want to talk to anybody at the store randomly. But then other people are like pit bull lovers. So then they'll come over and want to do it. And that goes back to some people will ignore you and some people will talk to you. But I've felt better, again, not needing a service animal, but just having something on her to hopefully deter anyone from coming up to us or stopping or touching or interrupting us when we're shopping or doing whatever, or training at the store or whatnot, like we used to do anyway. So I can understand that kind of having that might help certain people, especially newer teams, feel more comfortable, a little better about going into stores or businesses or places for the first few times, with their dog. And that brings me to another point, because so for those listening, there's several different types of dogs that might help people in general. I mean, dogs help me all the time, but more specifically of kind of specific help. So we have our service animals, or service, we'll use dogs in this case, our service dog, which you just described, Sunny, so well. And then we have therapy dogs, and we have emotional support animals, or emotional support dogs. Yes. So I want to discuss a little bit of the differences of this, because as I'm sure you have heard and seen and had to explain to many people, I've had to explain this as well to a lot of people who will ask about this or want their dog to be a therapy dog, or want to know, hey, is this can I get a service dog? Can I do this? So I would love for you to touch on this a little more specific and expand on it. But, therapy dogs, from my experience, at least in New Jersey, do have to pass something, and it's more of a kind of going out to, let's say, a hospital or seeing children in a school, and kind of they can do certain things like that in these areas that allow it. An emotional support dog is more flexible in terms of what they're, how you can identify one as an emotional support dog. They kind of just help people in general with emotional needs, which is definitely something I need. And then there's a service dog, which is very specific, and you need that specific task. The dog has to be able to perform that specific task to help with somebody's disability in particular. The other two are not helping with a specific task per se like that, or helping with somebody that has a true disability and needs assistance. And the public access thing, because I have a lot of folks who think a therapy dog is going to get them able to bring their dog everywhere. And that's sometimes, unfortunately, the only reason they're really asking about it. And same thing with the emotional support dog. So Ken, I know this can get down into the weeds with how much differences there are, but can you give us, first of all, I hope I said that at least well enough, but good. Awesome. I got thumbs up from Sunny, for those that aren't watching this on YouTube. So Sunny, can you explain a little bit further, expand on those differences and just like what is allowed for some of these dogs versus not allowed?
Absolutely. So service dogs, just to kind of once over again, service dogs are trained to perform a task to mitigate an individual's disability, and that could be inside or outside of the home. Service dogs are granted public access through the person with disability, or through their trainer that's training the dog. Therapy dogs or therapy animals are typically going to be going through a program. Most of the time, and it differs state to state, most of the time it's going to be with pet partners, or I think it's Alliance of Therapy Dogs or Alliance of Therapy Animals. And those two programs are then partnered with organizations that provide services to the public. And those could be hospice, schools for reading for the children, or for the children, I guess, to read to the dogs, hospitals, shelters, anything like that. So therapy dogs are dogs that are trained in slightly advanced behaviors and circumstances and surroundings with different situations. So they have a little bit more training than a pet or an emotional support animal. But their access is through the program, typically through the program, to go to places that have requested therapy dogs to go in to assist multiple people. So it's, again, hospitals, hospice, shelters, things like that, where there's a larger number of people that these animals will be visiting in a certain time frame. They do not have public access. So therapy animals at the end of the day are not service dogs or service animals. The ADA only allows for miniature horses and dogs. So therapy animals do not allow, therapy animals do not get public access. So if they're not with the organization or going to be in a therapy visit, they are outside of that time frame considered a pet. So they are not able to go into restaurants or any non-pet friendly location. The same goes for emotional support animals. And emotional support animals can be anywhere from a spider or a scorpion, if that's what somebody's deal is. It's totally fine.
That would do the opposite for me, but that's I'm sure somebody, some people love that. Yeah, it's interesting.
And it can go anywhere. I've seen ponies and cows be emotional support animals for people, and typically a mental health provider will recommend that their patient gets an emotional support animal. So an emotional support animal is not necessarily in task trained to do anything for the person. It's there for the person's emotional comfort. So if it makes the person feel better, it helps them calm down, it helps them relax, especially by any kind of touch. That is an example of emotional support animal. They also, though, unfortunately, do not have public access. So they are very much treated like a pet, in that they can't be going into grocery stores, into restaurants. If it's pet friendly, all for it. If it's not pet friendly, they shouldn't be there. Outside patios are great. Outside malls, awesome. Take your dog or cat or your emotional support animal. But if it has food in there, it's likely not pet friendly. So
agree. I'm so glad. No, go ahead, Sunny. I want to hear more from you about it.
I was just going to mention one thing. So we touched on certifications, registrations, and IDs for service animals.
Yes.
A lot of these websites online will also have this for emotional support animals. It's, again, not federally required or recognized, and no state that I know of recognize any kind of registration or certification or IDs for emotional support animals. So don't waste your money. Go to your doctor if you feel like a pet might really help you inside of your home. Go see a professional and get that help that you need.
Go from there. That's true, because we've all seen it in the dog world of buy this, get the certificate to frame and the vest and the little, things to add onto the leash and all. And I think, people I understand, they're like, oh, I want to get this signed up and make sure they think they're doing the proper procedure, and it's really not needed. And you're just kind of, I'd rather you spend the money on something else for your dog or for your mental health or for something that you need. So I'm glad that you're raising awareness about that, because I've known people after the fact, of course, that have purchased something like this and they did not need it. So I think, touching on the fact, so just to reiterate that, because it's so important, the only animal out of those, the only dog there out of those examples, therapy dog, emotional support dog, service dog, that is allowed everywhere the handler is going, is the service animal, the service dog. That's the only one. So they're allowed to go where the handler's going, because obviously they're there kind of to work. They're there to help their handler through this. So what if I'm a business owner, I have a brick and mortar, I have an establishment, or someone's walking into my area of business, do I have rights as a business owner to ask somebody coming in with a dog that might not have anything on or might have something on? Because again, we don't know, it's not needed. So if I'm a business owner, what rights do I have in that regard with people entering my store with dogs? Do I have any, Sunny?
Yes. So business owners definitely have rights. And this is where part of my job, I guess, part of my want is to educate business owners, because so many have had pets come in with their owners that weren't service animals, and the owners maybe didn't even know that they were in the wrong, but they bought that ESA ID or certificate, or their dog is a therapy dog, and maybe they don't know any better. And so what business owners need to know is they absolutely have rights. There are 2 questions that any business owner can ask a person coming in with a dog. And that is this a service animal required because of a disability? And the second question is, what tasks is this dog trained to provide? They can't ask you to demonstrate the task. They cannot ask you what your disability is, and they can't segregate you. So let's say it's a restaurant. They can't segregate you from the other patrons in the restaurant. They can't have you wait off to the side until the line has cleared out. They can't do anything other than ask those 2 questions. Now, if somebody maybe lies and says, yeah, it's my service animal, she helps me relax. This is where also business owners need to get educated on the difference between service animals, therapy animals, and ESAs. According to the ADA, bringing comfort and helping a person relax is not technically considered a task. That's a fine line, but it's a fine line. We'll just leave it at that.
Yes, there's nuance here. There's nuance. But I get what you're saying. If it's not like I'm having a PTSD type of response to something where now I need a dog to help me calm down or get grounded again or something of that nature, versus I'm stressed out a little bit and my dog's I'm happier when my pup's with me kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. One's like a task that's going to save you, and the other is just kind of a comfort that we all would love to have when we're out and about, but not necessarily have a right to in these businesses.
Agreed. Yeah. So I have been in some businesses where owners or business managers won't say a word because they're nervous about the repercussion of asking the questions. I've also been in some where they don't ask because they're scared of dogs and they don't want to approach. And then there's also the instances where you get just kind of bulldozed at the entrance because they've had dogs peeing, they've had dogs taking a poo on the floor, and a lot of the time that's enough for them to say, I'm not doing this anymore. And then there's also the instances where they ask the question and somebody flashes the beautiful ID that they purchased online, which has no legal validity. And so what that can do is it's a detriment to the people that have legitimate service dogs, because now we're being asked for an ID that doesn't exist. Okay, come here, baby.
We don't want to be asked for IDs, right?
No one wants to be asked for IDs.
Thank you.
No. And so
I see. So yeah, I'm sure that makes them feel, everyone kind of can start feeling some type of way with that.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's a big world out there in the business aspect of it. But businesses need to know if a dog is barking excessively, they can be asked to leave. If it is a legitimate service dog and maybe the training is just not quite there yet, they are required to allow the human to enter back into the store. And this doesn't mean if a dog barks once because it's startled or a person startled it intentionally. If it's uncontrolled barking and the handler isn't doing anything to resolve it, they can be asked to leave. Sniffing, it's more on the manners department, the etiquette department. It's not required or not allowed by the ADA, but it's a higher elevation of behavior and manners that should be thriving to be reached. And then of course, jumping up on people, anything where the business is and the items that are being sold, or restaurants or a zoo, if it's becoming a nuisance, where it's becoming a problem, the person can definitely be asked to leave. So I really want businesses to understand you absolutely can ask those 2 questions. IDs are not typically a legitimate thing. There are a couple of programs that give that to their handlers, but those are pretty few and far between. And just watch for the dog's behavior and how the handler is reacting to it.
I see. I'm glad you said those two questions, because that's what they're legally allowed to ask those.
Yes.
And I think in most interactions with people as a business owner, I think it's all about the delivery. You know, if you're personable, you go up, you genuinely are asking these two things and you move along. There's usually shouldn't be any harm in that. And so I feel like it's good to help people build some confidence up with doing that as a business owner to do it, because I do feel like most people are a little nervous.
Yes.
It's such a gray area for so many people about this whole topic. Like, what's a service dog? There's these other types of therapy, emotional, and people are like, this dog's helping me. And you're like, oh, what am I supposed to say? You know, like, what do I do? And it's kind of weird for everybody, I think, in that moment when someone's entering in. I think the more everyone knows what to ask and how to respond to these things, that the team knows how to respond and the business owners know what to ask, that we can also help get away from, unfortunately, a lot of people that are claiming their dogs are service animals or service dogs, and they're not. Right. And it, like you said, it hurts those. That's the thing that bothers me the most, of course, that it hurts those that actually need the service dog, that are actually doing the proper procedure to get this. And it hurts those who need it the most. So don't try to get your dog to be a service dog, please, everyone listening, in case, I mean, if you have a disability, you really need one, of course. But if that is not you, do not do it. You're ruining it for others that really need this stuff and really need the help.
And to kind of just taper off on your last comment there, a lot of times people bring their pets in, either knowingly or unknowingly. And sometimes those pets are totally fine. They're well behaved, they're not barking. It's the ones that are aggressive towards other dogs, that are able to escape from their handler. I have a service dog. She has unfortunately been bitten 4 times
oh my goodness.
by dogs. I've been blessed enough to be able to work her through those. She's 5 now and she's able to continue working. A lot of people are not that lucky. They put a lot of time and money into training their service dogs, not just the tasks to help mitigate those disabilities, but the hours that it takes to get them used to everything that they're going to encounter in public access. And to have an unruly or aggressive pet come after, and sometimes, you know, it's a pretty severe injury where they can no longer physically even work. It's a huge blow to the handler and their independence and their confidence about now going out in public again with or without their service dog. So yes, please don't. If you don't have a disability and you don't need a service dog, please don't bring your pets out into public in non-pet friendly places.
Right. And you know, that I'm sorry to hear that. That's horrible, because I mean, I've witnessed just dog fights or dogs getting off, you know, just even when I'm not working, things have happened. And me just witnessing it or being near it, it's traumatizing. Never mind for the dogs, for people that have to witness it, especially if it's your dog. My God, you know, and to have that happen several times already, you have to recuperate as well as your dog, 100%. And as well as making sure that the tasks stay on and that, you know, she's able to continue working, as you need that. There's so many things that happen that are negative for everybody involved when that happens. It's just traumatizing. So I'm happy things are okay and that you were able to work through that, because that's a something that I think a lot of dogs might not be able to work through one time, never mind a few. Like that. Like one traumatizing event can ruin it. I mean, have a bad experience at a restaurant and see if you're going back again. Like most people can't even deal with that. So, you know, it's don't do it unless you absolutely are a person that qualifies for that. So I'm glad we're going to harp on that again, because it's so important. And that was one of the themes of today's episode I wanted to get across, because it is something I think, you know, some people don't know, some people know and do it anyway, but we want to help both of those groups of people not do that. So I know we touched, maybe we kind of already touched on this, but just want to throw this out there too. If someone does need a service animal to help mitigate a specific disability or help alert them to something, all those examples that you went through, I know that you said they just need the one task. They need to be housebroken. They need to be quote unquote under control, not causing a scene or doing anything incessant or aggressive or something like that. Do you recommend outside of that, let's say you're working with a client or even with your own dog, Sunny, do you recommend a couple other things just because maybe to have those general manners that would help the interaction and the outing go a little bit better? And if so, what skills would you kind of put at the top of the list or behaviors would you put up there?
That is an excellent question. And I could talk for a few years about this.
Oh, this podcast will run 24 hours for the next few days.
So when I train service dogs, and when I've trained my personal service dogs, I strive for more than under control, housebroken, and just the task train. So, but I know not everybody is physically or emotionally capable of doing that. I 100% get that. So my thinking is if you can at least get those three basic things there and a great solid leave it, whether that's objects on the floor, food on the floor, or people reaching towards your dogs to pet. Maybe there's a behavior you can do of when you say leave it and it's a person reaching for your dog turns around or lays down on the ground. So just small things where it's just going to help you in the long run. It's going to help keep your dog safer, right? If there's like a chicken bone on the ground, I don't think I've ever seen chicken bones on the ground, but if there was a chicken bone,
I've definitely seen a chicken bone lying around.
Really?
Unfortunately. Oh yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
Gum and candy on the ground. Around
here. Okay.
which is also dangerous for dogs.
We don't want them eating that.
No, but I think leave it is 100% probably the most important thing because it can be used for such a variety of things. I think a good solid kind of watch me or focus or IQ so that if the dog is having a hard time ignoring the person or ignoring the food on the ground and you ask for an alternate behavior of, hey, if you look at me, you'll get some cool goodies or I'll give you a little chin rub or something. That's really beneficial. And then probably the other one is back up. A lot of people don't think about that, but back up and then kind of coinciding with that is forward or go around me. So either walk forward or kind of stand in front of me horizontally. The reason for both of those is a lot of times if you're standing in line, for example, at a grocery store, there's a person that likes to get really, really close to your body with that grocery cart, right? And if your dog's laying down, that's a possible injury risk for their tail, for their back feet. So if they're laying down or standing and you have them move forward or stand in front of you horizontally, that's going to help them. Alternately, if you're standing in line and the person in front of you needs some space and is starting to back up, this way you don't have to physically manipulate your dog backwards. You can just say, I think it's cute. Some of my clients use beep beep for backing up.
Yeah, that's
and
cute.
So if you ask your dog to back up, it helps keep them safe. And so those would be, I think, the most important is leave it, either for stuff on the ground or people coming, a good eye contact behavior or cue, and then backing up or moving forward, I think if you can at least get those three with the housebreaking and being under control or not barking, not being a nuisance, and then having that task that mitigates your disability. I think if you can at least get to there, I think you'll be pretty good for the most part everywhere.
It's interesting you said that because I put leave it at the top if you're bringing a dog out anywhere, even without the service dog stuff, just regular dogs. I'm like, leave it's up there, so I think it's cool to hear that that's also a priority for service dogs. And it makes sense. I mean, we need the dogs to not go for other things in our human world that can be crazy with chicken bones. And I did a post once where Jade found literally a whole slice, just one intact slice of pizza sitting in the middle of a soccer field.
Wow.
She knows leave it very well, and had a very hard time letting it go for a couple of seconds, which to me was like 3 hours. And, you know, if you've ever tried to get something out of your dog's mouth, every second feels like you just had a birthday,
Exactly.
you know, and like years have gone by. So it's something that, especially I think for service dogs, kind of rounding it out and working in those distracting environments and really upping it. You know, I've never worked with pizza or worked on Leave It at the soccer field, which then reminded me, oh, okay, we should start practicing some of this out here because obviously there was, you know, sometimes it's really hard for them. So, you know, it's an important skill your dog should know. Luckily she let it go, but it took a couple seconds for her to think about it first, because who can say no to pizza?
Exactly.
But yeah, so I like to normalize that we have issues sometimes as dog trainers, and with our own dogs, stuff happens, but prepare yourself the best. So I'm glad that that's a priority. So something that I've had to learn, even when I first started training dogs, and I would get asked about this, and obviously, again, I'm no service dog expert. I don't work with service dogs, but I would get asked a lot about, I would get like emails like, hi, you're a dog trainer and I want to know, I need a service dog for my 6-year-old son who has this issue or that, or we're trying to help this. And what should we do? Where should we go? So I would love to hear from you, Sunny, your experience. Obviously, I know you're a trainer who helps do this for people. But if somebody is out there who's like, I need this for my family, I need this for myself, I have a family member in need, what are the best ways to go about acquiring a service dog? Can they use their own dog? I'm sure that depends. The answer to all this is it depends usually, but what should they look into? Is there organizations, trainers? Can they do it? What's the overall view on that?
So I'll start off with, can they use their own dog first? If the dog's temperament is suited for service dog work, and they're able to get either the dog trained themselves or with the assistance of a trainer, I say go for it. You already have the dog in your home. You already know all the cute little quirks that they might have. Do it. I will also, on that note, say not most dogs are suited for service dog work.
It is a job, and not everyone is suited for the job just because you want them to be.
Exactly. So let's say somebody has a golden retriever or a lab, very commonly used in the service dog world, but maybe their dog doesn't really like other dogs, or maybe their dog is really scared of people. That's going to make it very difficult for that dog when it sees people or dogs to help you in that potential moment of need. So you want to definitely make sure that you're getting the right dog for the job. There's a huge thing in the service dog world of need before breed, right? So I might want a Caucasian ovcharka, probably not suited for service dog work, right? So we gotta at least consider need before breed. If somebody needs mobility assistance, a Chihuahua is probably not going to be the best idea, right? We might be needing to look at larger breeds, and so on and so forth. So there are so many organizations that are devoted to specific types of service dog work. So there's Guide Dog for the Blind. There's a bunch of organizations that offer veterans that have served our country free, fully trained service dogs. So it really kind of depends on what you're going for. I know here in Arizona, we have, I believe it's a golden retriever based company that trains dogs for autism. I believe for both adults and children, but they specialize in autism service dogs. And then there's the cost factor. Some organizations will give you a fully trained service dog free of charge. Others will require you to fundraise half of the cost. So anywhere between, the number might be scary to some, but it's realistic, anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000, and that's half of the cost. And then others will give you a fully trained service dog at full cost. And that can honestly, depending on the task that the dog has been trained to, can be anywhere between $20,000 up to $50,000. It really just depends. And this is where, when people bring their pets out, that's a lot of money that you've potentially just ripped away from someone that they maybe took 2 or 3 years to fundraise or to work for. So they're definitely not cheap. Service dogs are not cheap to raise and train. It starts at 8 weeks typically for these organizations, and most of these organizations also breed. So they have their breeding costs, they have the whelping costs, they have their raising costs, and then a lot of times there's those puppy raiser homes. And so I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a show on Disney, I believe, about Pick of the Litter. And in that show, right, I won't say the number, but not all of the puppies make it through the program.
Right. They're selecting out of the group. Yeah. They have
and so it can be the same thing with people that say, you know what, I can't afford and most people can't afford $20,000 to drop on a dog. And maybe they don't have the time to fundraise. And so the law allows for owners to owner train their dog. So if you don't have the funds and you want to maybe reach out to a trainer that specializes in service dog training, or at least has some decent amount of knowledge on service dog training, they can help an owner evaluate a puppy and see if it has the right temperament, and then go from there. So owner training is 100% legally allowed by the ADA, and so that can be a much less expensive route to go for many handlers. The thing with that is there can sometimes be a high washout rate, and what that just means is that the dog at some point isn't suited for the job, and so it can be incredibly heartbreaking for people because they've invested their personal time and their money and their energy into raising and training this puppy and taking it to public and making sure that it's accustomed, and then at 1.5 years old, the dog says, you know what, this isn't the job for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna quit.
Right, and I'm done. I'm retiring from service dog work, and this owner is just crushed. So that's the probably the biggest downfall to owner training is you've invested your heart into this.
It's very personal, like a little more so than just if you get it from an organization. I mean, it comes at a cost, but
and I, as a trainer who has done this for many years, my previous dog before my poodle was washed at 2 years of age. She knew all the tasks. She knew everything I needed to do. She was a border collie, beautiful dog, sweet soul, great with dogs, great with people. But she did not have the drive to work. She was miserable. She hated it. So I rehomed her, and her owner and I still keep in touch, and she's in the best home I could have ever wished for. But it definitely happens to the best of us that have all of the knowledge and training behind it. It happens sometimes.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think, on the flip side of that too, it's just another, I think, nice reminder for us as human beings to say, listen, our dogs aren't robots.
Yeah.
Whether you're working with a service animal or your dog at home that you're trying to train on coming when called, where I'm always reminding people, like again, with the pizza incident with Jade, like that was a 1 in a million, like she never has an issue with it, but on occasion, you might have a moment where it's not working out, or they decide, I don't want to do this, or I'm not feeling it. I'm not up for it. So I appreciate you sharing that. And, going through that, I'm sure is difficult for most people when you've invested all of that into it, so
it's definitely emotionally tough.
Yes. You're investing more than just the time and the money. It's also emotional investment. So that's something to consider. And I'm glad that we could touch on that too. So, I do, so there are organizations, people can do it themselves. When we're considering how to train, because I know, like we said before, you've helped clients, you work on this, you've worked with your own dog on this, you continue to, I know it never ends. It's a lifestyle with training in general. So, when you're working with your clients, with your own dog, maybe, other trainers or organizations that work on this, in your professional opinion, what type of method or approach do you find is best when training, when you're doing the type of training with these service dogs and training them on the tasks and everything else? Do you think it's an important factor in their upbringing, in the outcome of the training and the dog's overall well-being, rather?
100%. There are lots of different ways of training. Right. Not one method of training is what everybody else wants. I have found in my experience, even with my washed out border collie prospects, positive reinforcement, I have seen the most success rate, even with my washed out dog. And I say that because I want a dog that looks happy, that looks like they're enjoying their work.
Right.
I don't want my dog to appear shut down or to be shut down. I want my dog to be able to be independently thinking. If I can't ask her to perform a task and I'm in distress, I want her to be like, you know what? This is really fun to perform this task because I always get really good cookies afterwards or a game of fetch. And so I really feel that positive reinforcement is hands down the best way to do it, and a lot of play. The more fun you can make training in whatever aspect for your dog, the more fun you're going to have, right? Less stress for both you and your puppy. And I feel your dog's going to retain that information better than if it's used with different methods.
Yeah. And again, bringing the human element into it. I mean, we've all, at least me, worked for somebody in the past we really didn't like that much because they were abrasive, or their methods of trying to educate you at your job were, maybe more punishment based or telling you suck. So, you don't want to really go the extra mile for that person. You might do the bare minimum and kind of be miserable, like you said. And I think at the end of the day, we want the dogs to be happy. Generally, happy, content, and like you said, offering certain things up versus just waiting for a directive and just hoping that it goes well, so they don't, feel anything else. So I think, again, as a positive reinforcement trainer myself, I always, honey is better than vinegar across the board with humans, relationships, your dog, other animals, other people, your boss, your coworker, everybody is going to do better with it. And it works. The other thing is it's effective. Not only is it, nice for everybody, but it's effective. And I do think the dogs retain it better and do have a overall sense of being more content, happy, joyful, enjoying the experience. And that's what we want with our dogs. I'm assuming most people get dogs they'd like to enjoy the time with them in general, whether they're working or not. So keeping that in line, I think, is really important to keep things positive as best as we can across our lives, if you will. And I there's always misconceptions. So I usually end podcasts with, give me a myth, a misconception, something that most people don't know about, stuff like that. We hit on a couple, but we can reiterate some, or maybe there's others. But what are one or two big misconceptions you notice with service dogs in the service dog community, people looking outside into the service dog arena? What are some misconceptions that you've seen, heard, have had to deal with on that note? Love to hear from you.
Oh, this could
loaded question.
Okay, so I think the most common one that I've heard is that dog can't be a service dog, meaning that breed. ADA doesn't say any breed cannot be a service dog. Every breed can be a service dog. Should they? That's dependent on the dog, but every breed is legally allowed to be a service dog. Some breeds, again, are better suited than others, but a lot of people will say, I have a few clients that have pitties, and they're like, pitties can't be service dogs. They're aggressive.
I've heard it.
No, sometimes they're the best behavior.
Yeah, really. Jane's great in public. Not that I'm lessening but she's great. She's better than my Chihuahua sometimes. So,
exactly.
It's like he's a little small, cute dog, but she's calm.
Gosh, let's see. Another one is probably the dog has to be labeled. I don't see a vest on it.
I don't see ID on it.
I don't see ID. Yeah. My favorite is, and I get this a lot, my poodle is very cute.
Totally biased. Agreed. No, I agree. She is gorgeous specimen.
Thank you.
She's so pretty. Oh my gosh. I wish my hair looked as good as hers. Let me just tell you that on a side note. She is so well groomed and looks so regal. Thank you. Carry on. I'm sorry. I'm loving on your dog right now.
No, you're fine. I get it a lot, and I know handlers of multiple other breeds get this a lot, but it's the, may I pet your dog? I say, no, thank you. She's working. Well, then why do you have it out in public?
Ooh, yikes.
So that's always fun to navigate. And my answers differ depending on the day and how I'm feeling. I typically try to be polite. but I think the entitlement that the public feels,
yeah, that bothers me.
It's a big deal, and it's not a service dog handler's job to educate the public.
Right. We're not there doing a free class workshop for you, Sally, you know? Yeah.
And I want to definitely put this out there for the general public that maybe does, and it all comes down to knowledge. You don't know what you don't know, right? But I want the general public to understand people with poodle service dogs, people with Malinois poodle dogs, or poodle dogs, service dogs, or labs or goldens or chihuahuas or pitties.
Yeah.
We go out because we need to get things done. Groceries, errands, doctor's appointments.
Right.
And we hear, it's so cute. What kind of dog is that? What's your dog's name? Oh my gosh, it's wearing shoes. Way more than you hear or think that we hear. And it can become very tiring. And we don't have time to answer our dog's name, what breed it is, how old it is. And I'm just running in to get some apples and bananas.
Yeah, like I just need to get my milk and my stuff for my family. Please let me be. Yeah. I'd be the worst.
It's tough. And then the other big thing that a lot of service dog handlers appreciate is when the human talks to us. Makes eye contact with us. My dog does not speak English. She understands English cues, but she does not speak English.
Yes.
And so a lot of people will think, because the dog has been trained most of the time, not all the time, but has been trained to ignore strangers coming up, they'll think that the dog is sad. Or if it's been trained to lie down because we're waiting for the doctor to call us next, and we're in the lobby and the dog is underneath our chair or next to the table, oh gosh, your dogs look sad. No, they're just trained to be relaxed.
I'm sure deep down they wish their friggin' dog was lying down being quiet. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like what? Yeah. I mean, I understand the people don't, like you said, they don't know. But it is, I mean, I've been frustrated again, just bringing my experience that's not service dog related, but just dog related, dog training related. I've been out doing, dog friendly places where people want to bring their puppies, and outdoor brewery or restaurant outdoors that allows dogs, or like a hardware store, and we're working with distractions and kind of ignoring people and some of that stuff. And I remember this incident. I had this person at the store start just coming up, and this was a dog that had, as a puppy, had worked through he had some strangers underneath there, not quite sure. And so he was much bigger now, and a huge golden, like a big one. Yeah. And I was, he was fine, but like, I know he doesn't love that in that moment. And so I was like, oh, we're working right now. And I had my trainer shirt on and everything. And I'm trying to advocate for this dog and say, no, we're good. And this woman just didn't look at me, like almost walked into me, walked right past me, and like went to go touch him. And I literally had to physically put my body in between him and her, and like put my hand up like for a little child, like, excuse me, please don't touch this dog. And she looked at me like upset, like, again, entitlement that everyone feels, regardless of your dog, feels like everyone feels entitled to touch the cute dogs. And trust me, I want to touch all the cute dogs too, but you have to understand, like, we love dogs, but you also have to understand, like, I, in a weird way, will now use the analogy of like, that's my kid, that's my fur baby, that's my partner, that's my family member, however you want to state it. And you don't just walk up to someone's kid and be like, oh, hey, cute little kid, and like touch their cheeks. Like, that would be creepy. You might get the cops called on you.
Right. Yeah.
And why do we feel we're allowed to do that with dogs? I've had people touch Freddie out in public, like as we're walking by, just like dump their hand down and touch him. And I've turned around and been like, excuse me. Because I've had enough that day, and I'm over thresholds, and I'm not being as polite, and I don't care. And I'm like, excuse yourself. Like, what are you doing? Because I can only imagine. That's on just a regular dog level. If I needed a service dog and I'm out and I'm already I'm sure there's people who are struggling just to get to the store, just to experience being out in a social environment with a disability, with something they need assistance with, whatever it may be. They're already having a difficult time, or maybe just a challenging time getting that done. And now we have people coming up and asking questions and stopping, like, I don't want to talk to anybody at the grocery store. Never mind if I was trying to have my service animal help me out and get through it. So yeah, I mean, for anyone listening, ignore it politely, move on with your day, allow others to move on with their day. And at the very least, if you want to say something, how about you ask how the handler's doing that day and then move on quickly.
That's a good way. If you want to ask me questions, ask how the handler is doing.
Yes. Yeah. How's your day? Hello. A smile would be nice, something of that nature. Be a human. So I know no one means that maliciously, but it is hard on the teams, I'm sure, that are going out. So I think raising awareness about that's so important. And I'm glad that you touched on the breed thing really quick, because I have heard that, oh my gosh, this dog can't, this breed can't do it. And there is such breed specific, myths out there and kind of biases on what kind of dogs can do what, or how their personality is. And I'm not saying that genetics play nothing into sometimes a dog's general personality or things they're able to do, but just like with people, I'm Hispanic, you're Hispanic, don't judge me just because of that. I have other things about me. I might have some things that, yes, like we were talking offline about, but everybody's an individual. What we look like and our size and the color we are and all that, as we know with humans, does not give you all of the information on that person. So we need to look at that person as an individual. Same thing as dogs. Dogs are individuals. So great points there. I love those kind of misconceptions or things people should pay attention to and learn more about. This was great. I mean, even I learned a lot. I love learning more about areas of dog work that I just don't specialize in, and hearing someone who has such experience in it over several decades now to doing this. So thank you for bringing all of your expertise and insight into this, Sunny. I appreciate it so much. And before we sign off, let everyone know where they can connect with you and any things you have going on right now with your business or services. Where can people find you?
So easiest way to connect with me is my website. So it's happyk9training.com. So the letter K, number 9. happyk9training.com. I am located in Scottsdale, but I offer virtual lessons. So you can be anywhere in the world, and we can hang out and chat just like you and I are doing right now.
By the way, virtual training is very effective if you're committed to doing the work, which you need to be if you're training your dog. So I just want to plug that, because
I agree.
I've done it, and if anyone's looking for help, it definitely works. So sorry, carry on, Sunny. Little plug for virtual, little plug for virtual training.
I love virtual training, and a lot of people have continued, even though a lot of the COVID restrictions have lifted, and they found, wow, this is so nice. I can be in my pajamas. It's
at home, living room, on the couch. Yeah, it's great. Perfect. I love it.
So I offer the virtual training. I do in-home sessions. I have the group classes on hold during the summer because no one wants to be outside in 118-degree heat, including the dogs.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. And I have a service dog program called Seraphim Service Dogs. I put it on hold last year because of COVID. I wanted to make sure that the puppies I was raising and training would have the best possible outcome to reach service dog status, right? So I put that program on hold. I will be acquiring 2 puppies in the next couple of months, and then 2 more a couple months after that. So in about 2 more year and a half to 2 more years, I will hopefully have 4 puppies available for people that have disabilities. They'll be trained in whatever I feel that they're good at. So that might be non-weight bearing mobility assistance. So turning on lights, opening cabinets and doors, carrying items, retrieving items, stuff like that. And or they may be trained in psychiatric tasks. So that would be beneficial for veterans, people with PTSD, anything like that. So clearing the house, if the lights don't turn on, or if the lights do turn on and person just feels a little uncomfortable about checking the house, the dog can do that for you.
Wow.
Blocking, tasking, stuff like that. And then people that have more on the mental health issues. So the dog distracting from any self-harm kind of behavior, any meltdowns, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, the dogs potentially will be trained, depending on their abilities, to help mitigate those disabilities for the handler. So that will be hopefully up and running in the next couple of months.
That's
so
amazing.
That's Seraphim Service Dogs. Yeah.
Is that going to be linked to your website as well, or is that a separate?
It's on my website.
Okay,
yep.
Great.
It'll be
Great.
linked
So you can find that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
So those will be fully trained service dogs.
Awesome. And you're on Instagram and stuff too, right, Sunny?
Yes, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. I don't post as much on TikTok, but it's Happy Canine Training across the board.
Oh, good. I love when when it's all the same, when you catch the name like I did, and I'm like, yes, I don't have to change it. So awesome. Happy Canine Training. Go and check Sunny out. Sunny, thank you again so much for coming on. Oh, are we going to get to, oh, it's a baby. Sorry, I'm squealing. Sunny's amazing dog is on camera. Amazing. Such a great team. I love everything you're doing, Sunny. And again, appreciate your time and all of your tips and expertise on this. Thank you for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And for those listening, don't forget, treat yourself and treat your dogs.
That's right.